Hey, what's up? It's Todd, and today I'm going to teach you one of the most important things you can do as an intermediate or advanced guy to take your game to that next level, to make it elite, maybe even world class. Before I get into it, I want to talk to the beginners just briefly and say, if you are a beginner, by all means watch this video, but be careful of overusing this technique. Be careful of getting too focused on it. If you're a beginner, focus on the fundamentals first. All right, that's where you want to put your attention. By all means watch, by all means learn and set this as a goal, but if you're a beginner, focus on the fundamentals. Now, what I want to talk about in this video is how to adjust your game to the girl you're talking to. Rather than just have this idea of like, you're just like running through this script or just doing the same techniques or saying the same things to every girl. You want to be laser sharp pointed at what is value and what is comfort and what is going to work with this particular girl. So I'm going to teach you in this video how to go about doing that. One other little quick warning. Girls are really more the same than they are different. So that's another reason not to overuse this as a beginner. Okay, so girls come from the same evolutionary background over 10,000 years basically as a human species and millions of years as an animal species. So the things that they're going to respond to are more the same than different. Girls in general are going to respond to signals of like health and abundance. They're going to generally respond to signals that you have good social standing and status, right? These are things that are pretty much universal. Girls are going to respond to your confidence. Girls are going to respond to you seeming to know what you're doing with girls. Across the board, this is what typically good game is designed to convey, and you want to be doing that as a baseline. In fact, if you know nothing about the girl and you just go convey yourself as a high value guy, you'll start to do okay. And that's where a lot of intermediate to even sort of advanced guys are, is they've learned to be attractive, but they're attractive in this very general way rather than a specific way to the girl. Different girls, because of how they have lived their life, are going to have different expectations of men, different ideas of what is value, different things that make them comfortable and uncomfortable. So let's take an example, all right? Quick kind of stereotypical example would be, in America at least, take white girl, blonde, clearly rich, wearing like designer labels, wearing bright clothes, and looks like she's wealthy and she's always been kind of popular. That girl has had one particular life experience. Take another girl who maybe looks like more foreign, maybe speaks with an accent, her family, maybe she's the first or second generation here, dressed in more like casual, muted type of clothes, not quite as bright, not quite as flashy, and doesn't look quite as wealthy. That girl has had a different life experience than the first one. And in that different life experience, they've been treated differently by their parents. They've been treated differently by their teachers. They've been raised with different cultural fairy tales and different cultural stories about what marriage is and what marriage isn't, and what dating is and what dating isn't. And that's all going to inform them of what they should see as value and what they should see as not value, what they should see as cheesy and what they should see as attractive. All right? And so you want to talk to these two girls in different ways. Now, obviously, you may make a guess that a girl's a certain way, and then when you start talking to her, you find out she's a very different way, in which case adjust. Like play to the girl that's in front of you rather than to stereotypes. And I'm not suggesting that you take a lot of like wild cultural stereotypes. What I am suggesting though is as you talk to more and more girls, you are going to get a very good idea of who a girl is from a very little information. Sometimes just based on the way a girl is dressed and who she's hanging out with, you can tell a lot of things about her. Sometimes just based on the first few sentences a girl says when she talks to you, you can tell a lot about how she views men and how she views meeting guys in certain environments. And you want to use that information. You'd be foolish not to. So first I want to talk about how do you gather that information? How do you gather the information about this idea? We call it the girl's blueprint, by the way. What a girl's blueprint is, how do you gather that information? Well, really the best way I know is what I call guess and check, right? So from whatever information you can relate that girl to other girls you've met. So just at a glance, based on how she's dressed and how she looks, you can make certain guesses, right? They may or may not be right, but you'll be better off making those guesses than not. You'll be right a higher percentage of the time making good guesses than you would making no guesses, right? So again, you're gonna basically go off of somewhat cultural stereotypes. More importantly, and usually, as you talk to more girls, your own experience of talking to certain types of girls, right? So you make that first guess. Then from there, the girl's going to immediately start reacting, and then you want to take with a lot of salt, like a lot of weight, the fact that of what she does when she starts actually talking to you. That's way more important than the initial stereotype. And what you want to do is listen to the girl. Pay attention to the girl. Try and interact with that particular girl. And the questions you want to be asking yourself are, what does she see as valuable, right? What was her cultural background and history? Where is she coming from? What is her life experience? Those are two of the absolute biggest ones. Another one is kind of what are her goals and what's she looking for? If you can answer those three questions about a girl, you're going to have a really good idea of how to convey yourself to this girl. Now Another little caveat. When I say how to convey yourself to this girl, I don't mean that you should be lying to the girl. I don't mean that you should be fake in any way. You should be yourself. But yourself is kind of a flexible idea, right? You act differently around your parents than you would act around like teachers or bosses, than you would act around girls you're attracted to, than you would act around your good friends. So you have all these different facets of your personality. You also maybe have friends who you go out and like drink and hang out and talk with. And you have friends that maybe you go play sports with, and friends that you discuss like political ideas with, right? And so you are a multifaceted person. And I'm not saying to be something you're not, but what I am saying is when you know the scope of what this girl is interested in and what this girl finds valuable, there will be certain aspects of your personality that she will find massively valuable and be massively interested in. And there's certain aspects of your personality she might not be that interested in, at least at first. Maybe as she gets to know you, she might become interested in them, maybe not. But there is a more efficient way to meet this person. There is a more efficient way to present who you are, where you're more likely to get a positive response, more likely to have the time to really get to know this person on a deep level. And that's what we need to be choosing. Let's take a couple specific examples of adjustments you might make, all right? Let's say there's a girl who was raised in a very entrepreneurial way, raised maybe with money, maybe runs her own business herself, and she asks you, what do you do for a living? Right? With that girl, you probably don't want to convey that you have this like safe, steady job, because that's not what she's learned to value, and that's not what her goals and ambitions are. You maybe want to convey that you're ambitious and growing, and that you have, big ideas. Maybe that's what's going to be more attractive to that particular girl. Right? And within the same job, you may have both of those. You may have a safe, steady job that also has opportunities for ambition. So you can talk to her about the safe, steady part or the ambitious part. On the other hand, let's take a girl who's maybe the first person in her family to go to college. Her whole life, her parents taught her, get a good, stable job. If you have that good, stable, steady job that took a good education, she's going to be impressed by that. She's going to see that as value because she's been told that her whole life. And that's actually maybe the best way to start off conveying yourself to her. And then if you have entrepreneurial aspirations and other things like that, you can convey those and definitely share those with her. As you get deeper in a relationship, you should, but it's just not what you lead with, because you want to convey the parts of your personality that are going to give her the best window to stay around and get to know all of it. In a general sense, how do you want to convey, or where do you want to convey these type of things? How do you want to cater to her blueprint? Well, there's a couple different really good opportunities, or a few different really good opportunities. First one is when the girl is asking you biographical questions. When the girl is asking you, what do you do for a living? Where are you from? What are your goals? What are your hobbies? The ways that you convey those things are going to really tell her very quickly who you are. And you don't have to give the same answer to every single girl, right? One girl says, what do you do? And you say, I'm an engineer, I do this and this and this. Another person says, what do you do? And you say, I make things that change the world. Maybe that's your view there. Another girl says, what do you do for a living? And you say, I work really hard and I love my job, but actually what I really love in life is what I do outside of my job. Let me tell you about that. And these are all different ways you can convey yourself that are going to be better or worse for a particular girl. All right. So one is when she starts asking about your job, you're going to get a lot of information. You're going to know how to convey yourself there. Secondly, you can judge by how she reacts to particular things you do. So say that you tease a girl. Certain girls are going to love being teased, and they're going to respond big, and they're going to banter back, and they're going to participate. Other girls, if you tease them, they're going to sort of get a little more shy, they're a little more quiet, it might be overwhelming for them. Well, that tells you a lot about their blueprint for attraction, their blueprint for meeting a guy, whether they need more value or more comfort in the interaction. And so you want to pay attention and see how you can give the girl the best possible experience, right? And that's really what this is about, is that you have your personality and she has her personality, and there are certain parts that are extremely congruent, certain parts that are less congruent. There are a lot of ways you guys could interact really well together, and there are some ways you might not interact well together. But if you can make the experience of you great for her and make the experience of her great for you, you're going to have a very good relationship, and whether that be a one-night relationship or a long-term relationship or even a marriage. All right, so first one is when she asks you biographical questions, you have an opportunity to convey yourself, and how she asked those questions will tell you a lot. Secondly, her responses to your questions, your biographical questions about her will tell you a ton about what her blueprint is and how you can adjust. And then also, whenever you can find out things about her past relationships, past sexual experiences, things like that, that's going to tell you a lot about how she views men, how she views relationships, certain girls have had lots of relationships where they started with an early hookup, like they hook up with a guy the first night and then get into a relationship. Other girls have never had that and have only met guys over a period of weeks or months or even a longer time. And that just because a girl has never, hooked up with a girl early on doesn't mean she won't hook up with you relatively early on, but it does mean that she expects a little more patience. It means that she's probably going to get to know you a little bit longer before wanting to get sexual with you. And that's all part of her blueprint in terms of her sexual blueprint or her relationship blueprint. So you have kind of her cultural blueprint, maybe her blueprint in terms of what she views as value, her blueprint in terms of like work and life and how she wants to live her life, and then you have her blueprint in terms of relationships. So pay attention to any information you're getting from girls on any of these topics. Final thing I kind of want to wrap with is to say that the same girl isn't even necessarily the same in all situations. So there's also a situational blueprint. You take a girl who lives in a small town and she's among her friends who she's lived with for her entire life and known since she was 4 years old. She's going to act differently than if she's on vacation in Vegas with some friends she barely knows and just wanting to have this big, crazy experience. And that girl's blueprint is fundamentally different from one place to another, even though she's the same person, because the things she's looking for in that experience, the things she's like focused on and primed to pay attention to are different. So that's another aspect of blueprint you want to be paying attention to. All right, so basically what I'm saying is this. The fundamentals of game are the fundamentals of the game. You need to be an attractive person. And even in adjusting for the blueprint, you can't go so far in adjusting for her that you become an unattractive person. So let's say that a girl wants a lot of comfort. She wants you to really get to know her. That is great, but if in doing that, you become needy and you become desperate and you start over-complimenting her and like falling into her frame and her way of living the world and losing your own identity and personality, you will have catered to her blueprint, but you'll be doing it in such an unattractive way, you're not going to really get anywhere with her. All right. So the fundamental first thing is be an attractive man. But once you have that kind of locked down, once you're intermediate or advanced, or once you know, that becomes a habit for you, making these adjustments to pinpoint your value proposition to her blueprint, or the way that you're bringing comfort and getting to know the girl to something that's going to relate to her and make sense to her and be relevant to her, is going to make a huge difference in how you're received. So that's something you want to start thinking about at that advanced level. So again, typical blueprints are her cultural background, how she views money, how she views like status, what type of friend relationship she has, what kind of like romantic relationship she has. Those are typical things you want to be looking at. And then obviously there's also the situational blueprint. The girl that you meet like at her desk at work will be different than the girl you meet out at the nightclub. So take all that into consideration. It's secondary to good game, but it is really the secret sauce that will take good game and make it great game. So go and use it. I promise you, if you do it right, it's going to make a huge difference in your results. By the way, if you're interested in more advanced topics like what you saw in this video, but even more in depth, I recently released a brand new seminar, which is training on just advanced game. It goes incredibly deep on these topics. There's a link below. Click on that, head over there. You're going to enjoy it.